It was raining that morning. I looked out the window. The sky was gray. The street was empty. I felt something strange. I did not know why, but my hands were cold. Peter was still in bed. He looked tired. I walked into the room. I said his name. He opened his eyes. He gave me a small smile. I smiled back. But my heart was not calm. That was the last morning. I did not know it then. I only knew I wanted more time. I wanted one more day with him. Just one more. My name is Helen. I am 36 years old. I live in San Francisco. I lived there with my husband, Peter. We were married for 8 years. Our life was simple, but we were happy. Peter worked in a small train yard. He fixed the wheels. He cleaned the floors. He worked with tools. His hands were always dirty, but his heart was clean. He was a good man. I worked in a local shop. I sold fruit and milk. I did not earn much, but I liked the work. I liked talking to people. I liked coming home to Peter. We did not have a big house. It had 1 bedroom and a small kitchen, but Peter liked it. He said it felt warm. He said, "This is our home." I agreed. I always felt safe with him. Peter was kind to everyone. He helped our old neighbor carry bags. He gave his seat on the bus. He talked to people on the street. They liked him. They always smiled at him. We did not have children. I could not have a baby. I cried many nights. I said, "I am sorry." But Peter just smiled. He said, "You are my family. That is enough for me." He liked toast with butter. He drank hot tea every evening. He watched old films with slow music. He did not like loud things. He said, "Peace is better than noise." Every weekend we walked in the park. We did not speak much. We just held hands. Sometimes he told me small jokes. I laughed even if they were bad. I just liked to hear his voice. Peter was never angry, not even once. He listened to me. He waited when I was sad. He held my hand. He said, "I am here." One day in spring, he came home early. He looked pale. I asked, "Are you okay?" He said, "I just feel tired." I gave him tea. He drank it slowly. He did not finish it. That night he slept early. I watched him. His face looked different. His hands were cold. I put a blanket on him. I kissed his head. In the morning, he stayed in bed. He said, "I cannot go to work." I said, "You must see a doctor." He said, "Maybe later." He smiled, but his smile was weak. Days passed. He ate less food. He spoke less. He walked slower. I asked him many times, "Please, go to the clinic." He said, "I will. I promise." But he did not go. One day, he fell in the kitchen. He was standing, then he dropped a spoon. Then he sat on the floor. I ran to him. He looked at me and said, "I feel strange." I helped him stand. I made him sit in a chair. I gave him water. I said, "Now we go." No more waiting. He did not argue. He just nodded. We went to the small health center. The nurse asked questions. Peter tried to answer, but his voice was soft. They took his blood. They told us to wait for the doctor. The doctor came in after some time. He was quiet. He looked at Peter. Then he looked at me. He said, "We need more tests. Something is not right." Peter looked at me. He said nothing, but I saw worry in his eyes. I held his hand. I said, "I am with you." We came back the next day. They did many tests. I waited in the hall. I looked at the floor. I watched the clock. I prayed for good news. The doctor called us into his room. He sat down. His face was not happy. He said, "Peter is very sick. He has a problem inside. It will not go away." I asked, "Can you fix it?" He said, "We will try medicine, but we cannot stop it. It is too late." I looked at Peter. He looked down. He said, "How long?" The doctor said, "Some weeks, maybe a little more." We walked home slowly. Peter did not speak. I did not cry. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to help him. From that day, he stayed at home. I did not go to work. I stayed with him. We ate simple food. I helped him dress. I helped him move. His body was weak, but he still smiled. Every day was shorter. Every night was quiet. Some days he just slept. Other days we talked. He told me about his dreams. He told me, "I am not afraid." I sat next to him. I read books to him. I played soft music. I made him tea. He drank small sips. I gave him blankets. I gave him my time. It was all I could give. One evening we sat by the window. The sun was red. The air was soft. Peter looked at me. He said, "Thank you for this life." I said, "Thank you for your love." He closed his eyes. He held my hand. That night he asked, "Will you stay with me?" I said, "Always." I helped him into bed. I gave him more pillows. I kissed his head. He looked at me one last time. He said, "Goodbye." His voice was quiet. His eyes were soft. Then he closed them. He did not open them again. I sat there. I did not move. I touched his hand. It was still. I waited. I hoped. But I knew. He was gone. Before I share the rest of my story, I need to know, where are you listening from? Knowing someone hears me, understands me, gives me strength. The next morning, I opened my eyes. The bed was cold. Peter was not there. I turned my head. His pillow was empty. I remembered the night. I remembered his last word. He said goodbye. I sat up. The room was quiet. The sky outside was gray. The street was wet. I looked at Peter's chair. He used to sit there, but now it was just a chair. I walked to the kitchen. I picked up the cup he used. It still had tea inside. I touched the cup. I held it in my hands. My eyes were full of tears. I did not eat. I did not drink. I just sat there. The clock ticked. The phone rang. But I did not move. Later, someone knocked on the door. It was Peter's friend from work. His name was John. He looked at me. He said, "Is Peter home?" I looked at him. I said, "Peter is gone." John stood still. He said nothing. He looked down. Then he said, "He was a good man." I said, "Yes." He was my whole world. John sat with me. We did not speak much. He brought some bread and milk. He said, "You must eat." I said, "Not now." After he left, I went to our room. Peter's shirt was on the chair. I picked it up. I held it close. It still smelled like him. I lay on the bed. I closed my eyes. I saw his face. I heard his voice. But he was not there. He was never coming back. Days passed. The world kept moving, but I felt like I was standing still. People came to see me. They said, "I am sorry." They brought food. They said kind words, but no one could fix my pain. At night, I cried. I cried into my pillow. I held Peter's shirt. I talked to him. I said, "Why did you leave? I need you." I started to clean the house. I cleaned the table, the windows, the floor. I opened Peter's drawer. Inside was his watch, his pen, and a small photo of us. I sat down and cried again. The photo was from last summer. We were in the park. He had his arm around me. We were both smiling. I touched the picture and said, "Come back, just for one more smile." One morning, I opened the window. The sun was out. I took a deep breath. The air was fresh. It was the first nice day in many weeks. I walked to the park. It was quiet. I sat on our old bench. Peter used to sit here beside me. I looked at the trees. The wind moved the leaves. It felt like he was near me. A woman sat on the next bench. She looked at me and smiled. She said, "You look tired." I said, "My husband just passed away." She said, "I am sorry. I lost my husband too." We talked for a long time. Her name was Betty. She was kind. She said, "It hurts, but it gets better. Slowly." I said, "I don't know how to feel better." She said, "Start with small steps." I walked home. I made tea. I drank all of it. That was the first time in days. I opened the window. The room felt fresh. I put away the extra pillows. I folded Peter's blanket. I cried as I did it, but I did it. Each day, I did one small thing. I washed clothes. I watered the plant. I cleaned the mirror. I cooked rice. Little by little, I started to move again. But the pain was still there. At night, I still talked to Peter. I told him about my day. I said, "I went to the shop." I said, "I saw a child laugh." I said, "I miss you." One night, I had a dream. Peter was there. He looked well. He smiled at me. He said, "You are strong, Helen. You will be okay." Then he walked away. I called his name. He turned and waved. Then I woke up. I sat up in bed. My eyes were full of tears. But I felt warm. I felt a little strong. I started to go for walks. I went to the park more. I sat on our bench. I talked to Betty again. She smiled and said, "I'm glad to see you outside." I told her about Peter. I told her about our walks, his jokes, his tea. She listened. She said, "He sounds like a good man." I said, "He was the best." One afternoon, I walked by the sea. Peter loved this place. He liked to watch the water. I sat on a rock. I looked at the waves. I said, "Peter, I miss you every day." A child ran past me. He laughed. His mother called, "Slow down." I smiled a little. I thought, life goes on. I started to write small things on paper, not letters, just short words. Buy milk. Take a walk. Call John. It helped me remember. It helped me move forward. One day, I saw a couple in the park. The man helped the woman tie her shoe. I watched them. I felt happy and sad at the same time. I thought of Peter. I thought of our walks, our talks, our quiet evenings. I whispered, "Thank you." Weeks turned into months. I still felt pain, but now I also felt peace. Some days were hard, but some days were okay. I made a small photo frame. I put our picture inside. I placed it on the table. I lit a candle next to it. Every morning, I looked at it. I said, "Good morning, Peter." He was not here, but he was not gone. Not from my heart. Not from my days. I woke up early. The house was quiet. I made tea. I sat near the window. The sun was coming up. It was cold, but the light was soft. I looked at the photo on the table. It was a photo of Peter. He was smiling in the picture. I smiled too, but my heart still felt heavy. I touched the frame. I said, "Good morning, Peter." It had been many weeks, but I still talked to him. I still missed him. I missed his voice. I missed his hand. I missed his smile. Some days were better. Some days were still hard. But I was trying. I put on my coat and walked outside. The air was cold. I walked to the park. I passed the old shop. Peter liked the bread there. I looked at the door, then kept walking. At the park, I sat on the bench. It was the same bench we always used. I sat alone now, but I felt close to him. The trees were green again. The sky was blue. A child ran past me. His mother followed. She smiled at me. I smiled back. For one moment, I felt light. I looked at the sky and said, "I am still here, Peter." A woman sat beside me. It was Betty. She was kind. She lost her husband too. She said, "It is a nice day." I said, "Yes, I like the sun." She looked at me and said, "You look stronger today." I said, "I think I am getting better." She smiled and said, "I am happy to hear that." I walked home in the afternoon. I passed a flower stand. Peter used to buy me flowers. I bought one small white flower. I placed it on the table near his photo. I said, "This is for you." I made soup for dinner. It was simple. Just carrots and rice. I ate slowly. I looked at the chair across from me. It was empty, but I did not feel alone. I felt quiet. I felt calm. After dinner, I washed the dishes. I cleaned the table. I turned off the lights. I sat on the bed and held his shirt. I closed my eyes. I thought about his last words. He said goodbye. I will never forget that. The next day, I went to the small store near the station. I needed eggs and bread. The woman at the counter knew Peter. She asked, "How are you, Helen?" I said, "I'm okay. Thank you." She said, "Peter was a good man." I said, "Yes, he was." I walked home with the bag. I passed two young people holding hands. I watched them for a second. I remembered my time with Peter. I did not cry. I felt warm. I was lucky to have his love. I sat on the sofa. I looked at our photo again. I said, "I miss you, but I'm trying." I picked up a small box. Inside was his watch and his old keys. I touched them gently. I held the watch in my hand. It was quiet, like the house. That weekend, I went to the sea. Peter loved the sea. I sat on a bench near the water. The waves moved slowly. The sky was soft gray. A boy threw a stone into the water. He laughed. I smiled. An older man sat next to me. He looked at the sea and said, "My wife liked this place." I said, "My husband did too." He nodded. He said, "It still hurts." I said, "Yes, but I still come here. It helps." He looked at me and said, "That is brave." I said, "Thank you." I walked back slowly. The street was quiet. The lights in the houses were warm. I passed a bakery. Peter and I never went in, but we always smelled the bread. I stopped. I closed my eyes. The smell was the same. At home, I made tea. I placed it on the table. I sat and looked around. It was the same house, but everything felt different. I lived in the same place, but now I lived a different life, a life without Peter. Still, I was not empty. I had our memories. I had his love. I said, "You are not here, but I still feel you." I started reading short books again, just small ones. I read them at night. I kept the light on longer. It helped me sleep. I cleaned the house more often. I walked to the market every other day. I even opened the window in the morning. I did not talk much to people, but I smiled more. I helped an old woman cross the street. I picked up a bag for someone at the store. I said thank you. I said please. I felt more like myself again. One evening, I sat on the bed. I looked out the window. The moon was high. The stars were bright. I whispered, "Peter, I love you. I always will." I did not cry that night. I felt peace. I felt light. I still talk to him every morning. I say good morning. I tell him if it is raining. I tell him when I see something nice. I tell him when I feel strong. I tell him when I feel weak. I still share my days with him. He is not in the house, but he is still with me. He is in the chair he liked. He is in the flower I buy. He is in the sky. He is in my heart. Peter said goodbye, but he did not leave me. Not really. Love does not go. Love stays. I will live my life with his love beside me. I will walk slowly. I will speak kindly. I will help others, just like he did, because he loved me, and I loved him. That will never change. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share. More emotional and inspiring stories are coming soon. My name is Emily. I am 34 years old. I live in a quiet neighborhood with my husband, Adam. We have been married for 8 years. We do not have any children. People think we are a happy couple, but they don't see how quiet our house is. They don't hear the silence between us. When I first met Adam, I felt lucky. He was calm and kind. I liked how he spoke to me. He asked about my day. He made me laugh with small jokes. I remember our first date. We went to a cafe near the train station. It was cold outside, but he brought me hot chocolate and covered my hands with his. "You have the softest hands," he said. I still remember how I smiled. We dated for a year before we got married. I was 26 and he was 30. We didn't have a big wedding, just close family and a few friends. I wore a white dress with small pink flowers. Adam said I looked like spring. In the first years of our marriage, things were good. We went to the market together on Sundays. We watched movies and cooked dinner together. Sometimes we danced in the kitchen for no reason. Adam used to kiss my forehead and say, "You make this house a home." I believed him. I believed in us. But now, after 8 years, things are different. He still lives here. He still eats the food I cook. He still sleeps beside me at night. But it feels like he has already left me. His body is here, but his mind is far away. Every day, I wait for him to come home from work. I work part-time at the town library, so I usually get home first. I light a candle. I play soft music. I cook his favorite meals. I try to make our home feel warm. When he walks in, he says, "Hey." That's all. No hug, no smile, no kiss on the forehead. He walks straight to the living room and sits on the couch with his phone. I bring him a glass of water. He says thanks without looking up. Sometimes I try to talk. "How was your day?" I ask. He shrugs. "Busy." "Did your students behave today?" He says, "Same as always." And then he looks back at his phone. That's the end of our talk. Every night feels the same. Sometimes I wonder, am I boring now? Maybe I'm not beautiful anymore. Maybe I talk too much. Or maybe I don't talk enough. I ask myself these questions, even though I know they are not fair. Last week, I wore a dress I hadn't worn in years. It was green and soft. Adam once told me that green looked beautiful on me. I cooked chicken with garlic and rosemary, his favorite. I baked a small chocolate cake. When he came home, I smiled and said, "I made something special tonight." He looked at the table and said, "What's the occasion?" "No occasion," I said. "Just us." He sat down, ate quietly, and said nothing about the food. He didn't say I looked nice. After dinner, he stood up and said, "I'm going to bed early. I'm tired." He didn't even touch the cake. I sat there, watching the candle burn down. My plate was full. I had no appetite. I felt small, like I didn't matter. The next morning, he left before I woke up. There was no note, no message. The bed beside me was cold. At work, my friend Sarah asked me, "Is everything okay, Emily?" You seem sad. I smiled and said, "Just tired." That's what I always say. It's easier than explaining the truth. But the truth is, I feel like I'm fading. A few days ago, I found an old photo of us. It was from our second wedding anniversary. We were at the beach. I was laughing, and Adam was holding my hand. He looked at me like I was the only person in the world. Now he barely sees me. We don't fight. That's what makes it worse. There's no yelling, no anger, just silence. Quiet can be louder than shouting when it's full of sadness. One night, I tried again. I sat beside him on the couch. He was looking at his phone. I put my hand on his arm. "Adam," I said, "can we talk?" He looked at me. "What about?" "I feel like we are growing apart. Like you don't talk to me anymore. Like you don't even see me." He sighed. "I'm just tired, Emily. Work has been stressful." "I understand," I said softly. "But I'm still here. I'm your wife. I miss you." He didn't say anything. He looked away and said, "Maybe you're overthinking." And that was it. He went back to his phone. I sat there, frozen. His words felt like a wall. I couldn't climb over it. I couldn't break it. That night I cried in the bathroom. I didn't want him to hear me. Maybe he wouldn't care anyway. I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red. My face looked tired. I touched my own cheek and whispered, "Do I still matter?" The next day, I didn't make dinner. I didn't light a candle. I didn't ask about his day. And he didn't ask why. He just came in, sat down, and turned on the TV. That silence was my answer. Now, I keep a notebook by my bed. I write down one sentence each night. Not a poem, not a story, just a sentence that shows how I feel. One night I wrote, "I live in a house with someone who doesn't see me." Another night I wrote, "I talk, but no one hears." These words are small, but they hold my pain. They help me understand that I'm not crazy, that I'm not wrong to feel this way. One evening, I walked into the bedroom. Adam was already asleep. I stood there for a long time watching his face. He looked calm. He looked like someone I used to know. I didn't feel anger. I just felt empty. I whispered, "Can you hear me? Can you feel me, still here beside you?" He didn't move. He didn't answer. And deep down, I knew he didn't see me anymore. Before I share the rest of my story, I want to ask you something. Where are you listening from? It gives me strength to know someone is hearing my words, someone who understands me. Please tell me in the comments. I would really love to know. The days after that night were quiet, too quiet. I didn't try to talk to Adam. I didn't ask how his day was. I didn't cook his favorite food. I stopped waiting for him at the window. I stopped putting fresh flowers in the vase near the table. I just stopped. I went to work at the library each morning and came home to a man who was always busy, always tired, always somewhere else, but never with me. The silence between us became normal. We still shared a bed, but it felt like there was a wall in the middle. His back was always turned. I looked at that wall every night. I wondered if he even noticed how far I had gone inside myself. Sometimes I asked questions just to hear my own voice. "Do you want tea?" "No, I'm fine." "Do you want to go for a walk?" "Too tired." It was always the same. He never asked me anything in return. Not, "How are you?" Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "What did you do today?" Nothing. One Saturday, I came home from the store. I bought apples, bread, and some chocolate. I also bought a small plant. It had pink flowers and a tiny yellow pot. I put it on the windowsill. When Adam saw it, he said, "What's this for?" "It's pretty," I said. He shrugged. "Just another thing to water." I looked at the plant. It looked brighter than our whole home. That night, I stood in the kitchen and looked around. The dishes were clean. The floor was swept. Everything was quiet and neat. But I felt like a stranger here, like I didn't belong. I remember once, long ago, I asked Adam, "What makes you feel at home?" He had said, "You." Now I felt like the couch made him feel more at home than I did. One evening, I stayed late at the library. My coworker Sarah said, "Want to grab a coffee after work?" I paused. "Sure." We sat at a small cafe near the bus stop. It was warm inside. The chairs were soft. The music was low. It was the most comfort I had felt in weeks. Sarah asked, "Is everything okay with you and Adam?" I looked at my coffee. I stirred it even though I didn't need to. "I think he's forgotten how to love me," I said. She reached out and touched my hand. "I'm sorry, Emily." I nodded. "I just feel invisible. I don't think he sees me anymore. I don't think he even misses me." "You don't deserve that," she said. I looked out the window. The sky was turning pink. People were walking fast, going home. I felt like I had no home to return to. Later, when I did go home, Adam was on the couch again. The TV was playing. His phone was in his hand. "You're late," he said. "I went for coffee," I replied. He said nothing. "No, with who?" "No, how was it?" "No, did you have a good time?" Just silence. I went to bed early. I didn't want to sit beside him on the couch anymore. In bed, I opened my notebook. I wrote, "Today I stayed out longer than usual." He didn't ask why. He didn't even notice I was gone. The next morning, he left early for work. I stayed home. I cleaned the kitchen. I washed the bed sheets. I dusted the bookshelves. While dusting, I found one of his old love letters. It was in a box with our wedding cards. The letter said, "Emily, when I look at you, I see everything I want to protect. You are my safe place. I sat on the floor and cried. Not loud tears, just quiet ones that slid down my face without asking. I didn't feel safe anymore. I didn't feel like someone he wanted to protect. I felt like someone he forgot to remember. That afternoon, I walked to the park. I didn't tell Adam. I didn't leave a note. I sat on a bench and watched the ducks swim across the pond. A young couple sat nearby. They were laughing. The man kissed the woman's hand. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I looked away. I felt something deep in my chest. It was not just pain. It was longing. I wanted to feel chosen again. Not just accepted. Not just lived with. Chosen. I walked back home slowly. When I opened the door, Adam was still on the couch. He looked up once. Where were you? Out. He didn't ask anything more. He went back to his phone. I stood there, holding my bag, and I realized something. He doesn't wonder where I go anymore because he doesn't feel my absence. That night, I did not sleep beside him. I took my pillow and went to the small guest room. I closed the door. I didn't cry. I just stared at the ceiling and asked myself, why am I still here? Do I still believe he will come back to me? I knew the answer. I just wasn't ready to say it out loud yet. That night, sleeping in the guest room, I had a strange dream. I was standing in our kitchen, calling Adam's name. I called again and again, louder each time. But he just sat there, reading a book, not hearing me. I shouted, but he didn't turn his head. I waved my arms. I cried. Nothing worked. I stood in front of him, but it was like I was made of glass. He looked through me, not at me. When I woke up, it was still dark. The silence of the room was heavy. The sheets were cold. My pillow was wet. I had cried in my sleep. I got up quietly, walked into the kitchen, and made tea. I held the cup with both hands and stood by the window. The world outside was still asleep. The streetlights glowed. A few birds were waking up. I took a deep breath. Something inside me had changed. It wasn't loud or sudden. It was quiet, like the soft click of a door inside my heart, slowly closing. That morning, Adam walked into the kitchen and saw me standing there. "You didn't sleep in bed," he said. "I know." He waited, but I said nothing else. He took a glass of water, drank it, and walked away. No question. No, "Are you okay?" No, "Why not?" That was the moment I truly knew. He didn't care that I had left our bed. He didn't ask because he didn't feel the space I had left behind. That day, at the library, I couldn't stop thinking about our home, our marriage, myself. I started writing a list in my notebook during lunch. Not a shopping list. A list of what I had done for him over the years. Cooked him hundreds of meals. Washed his clothes. Sat beside him when he was sick. waited up when he came home late, gave him my time, gave him my heart, gave him my best years, and then, on the other side of the page, I made another list. What he had given me in return lately. Silence. Distance. Excuses. Coldness. Emptiness. When I looked at the two lists, my eyes filled with tears. I closed the notebook and went to the bathroom so no one would see me cry. I splashed water on my face. I looked in the mirror. I whispered, "Emily, what are you doing?" I didn't have an answer. That evening I came home, made dinner for myself only, and ate alone. Adam came home late. I didn't ask where he was. He didn't offer an answer. He made a sandwich and sat on the couch. I sat at the table with my book. I could hear the sounds of the TV, but I didn't look at it. After a while, I stood up and said quietly, "Adam, we need to talk." He turned the volume down and looked at me. "I'm tired of this silence," I said. "I'm tired of being invisible. I have asked you for your time. I have asked for your attention, but you don't give it." He opened his mouth, but I raised my hand. "Please let me finish." He closed his mouth and looked down. "I don't feel loved. I don't feel seen. I don't even feel like your wife anymore. I feel like a shadow in this house." He still didn't say anything. I continued. I kept thinking maybe I was the problem. Maybe I was asking too much. But now I see. I was only asking for the basic things. To be spoken to, looked at, held, remembered. I paused. I have been patient. I have been kind. But I can't keep doing this. I can't live like this. He looked up and said, "So what do you want to do?" That question was like a knife, not because of the words, but because of how empty they were. I said, "I want space. I want to find myself again." He frowned. "You're leaving?" "I think I have to," I said. "Not because I hate you, but because I love myself too, and I can't keep disappearing." He didn't stop me. He didn't say, "Please stay." He didn't ask, "Can we fix this?" He just looked away and turned the TV back on. That night, I packed a bag, just the things I needed, a few clothes, my journal, a photo of me and my sister as kids, my books. I left the rest. In the morning, I called a taxi and went to stay with my friend Alice. She opened the door and hugged me. I didn't cry. I just whispered, "Thank you." For a few days, I stayed in her guest room. I helped her with dishes. I read books. I sat in her garden. I listened to the wind in the trees. I wrote in my notebook every night. Today I chose myself. It hurts, but it also feels right. Adam didn't call. He didn't ask where I was. He didn't try to bring me back. And that told me everything. One morning, while sitting with Alice, I said, "I want to find a place of my own." She smiled. "I'll help you." We found a small flat not far from the library. It had one bedroom, a small kitchen, and a balcony. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I moved in 1 week later. The first night I sat on the floor with a cup of tea. No TV. No phone. Just me. And for the first time in a long time, the silence didn't hurt. It felt peaceful. I lit a candle. I opened the window. I listened to the street below, people walking, birds calling, the sound of life. I whispered, "Emily, you made it." That weekend, I painted one wall yellow. I hung up pictures of the ocean. I bought a soft blue blanket. I put my books on a shelf. I put the pink plant on the windowsill. It looked brighter than ever. Days passed, then weeks. One afternoon, I got a message from Adam. "Hope you're okay." I stared at it for a long time. I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because I knew something now. I didn't leave him because I stopped loving him. I left because he stopped showing love to me. And love that is not shown, not spoken, not felt, is just an empty word. Now, I wake up early and sit on my balcony with tea. I write in my notebook. I listen to the city come alive. I water my plant. I go to work. I smile more. People say, "You look different, Emily." And I say, "I feel different." Because I am. I feel real again. I feel present. I feel strong. Sometimes I miss the idea of love, but I don't miss the silence. I don't miss the waiting. I don't miss the feeling of being unseen. I don't know what Adam thinks now. Maybe he regrets it. Maybe he doesn't. But I'm not waiting for him anymore. This story doesn't end with a kiss. It ends with a quiet woman standing tall, holding her own hand, walking into a life that she made for herself. If you ever feel invisible in your own home, I hope this story reminds you, you are allowed to be seen. You are allowed to leave the silence. You are allowed to choose yourself.